Welcome back to the Fredrickson Clover Creek Community Council, now in session.
Didn't you say that you had 60-something full-time?
66 career.
So where do they spend their time?
So we staff 24/7, 365, right? And 6 stations. 5 of those are career. And so we have 3 workforces. Each one is 15 people that are on duty to staff those stations. That's the way we have to staff for 24/7, 365. Now fire response, that's another service we provide. Obviously, now I've come to call this our high risk, low frequency event. We still engage inside of burning buildings to search for victims, and that takes a lot of staffing and training. And there's other types of fires, brush fires. Since I've been here in October, we've had the largest brush fire in Grand Fire and Rescue's history, just south of 224th. Can you help me with the area?
Yeah, between 260th and 70th, right in that corner.
Okay, what was the nearest school?
Rocky Ridge.
Rocky Ridge. There's 2 housing developments that were threatened by about a 15-acre brush fire, and we relied on mutual aid to keep that. We started with law enforcement and evacuating a couple neighborhoods and kept that from getting into houses. That took mutual aid. We had about 30 fire engines at that incident, and some came from as far away as Central Kitsap.
Wow.
Yeah, but we were successful in keeping it from getting into the... something that's not up here, and this more, okay, diverse services we deliver, hazardous materials. This one would talk about what we call technical rescue, hazardous materials. Those are our members in the Tyvek suits. Did you realize we have this much water in Graham? Well, we don't. That's not in Graham. That's actually, see, we mutual aid help down. This is Chambers Bay. Trained early. This is our members in the Tyvek. Hazardous materials. Another type of incident, unfortunately, that we're also preparing. I say we're prepared, but we're preparing, continue to prepare for, is what we refer to as an active shooter incident. And recently we deployed to that incident at Graham Kapowsin High School. It ended up that it was not a person intending to do harm in the school. Those 2 young kids were shot outside of the school district and then ended up there. But we deployed for that purpose. Again, another highly technical, staffing-intensive event. Law enforcement on the onset, and then as it transitions to safe zones, it's a medical event. And we engage, prepare and engage in that also. Very diverse service. Continuing with diversity, does anybody here know Myra? She's our public educator. Tom does, of course. Sure. She's been, I believe, with this district coming up on 40 years. I think it's in 19, it's 40 years. And she has trained probably more people, from grade school, young age up through that have lived in this area than to our public education. Again, an area that I intend to, I'll talk about in the future, but we intend to enhance. The challenges that I can identify since coming here, since September, we'll talk about the population. Tom and I will both talk about that projected population. So what's happened here with population and increasing calls? Since 2010, our population in the area that we serve, Grand Fire and Rescue, in that 70 square miles, the population has increased 13% since 2010. Our demand for service, 911 calls, have increased 27%. In the same time frame. So our call for service gets disproportionate from the population growth. It outpaces the population growth. Now here's a fact, and it's sort of a grim statistic, but it's something that's my reality. In that same time period, I've had a firefighter injury rate increase in 200%. Now the reason I mention that is because of the highly technical, staffing-intensive service that we provide. The increase in population with the disproportionate increase in call volume I don't have the staffing to keep pace with that. That's not a sustainable model that I can look out 4 years, 8 years with the projected population and the increase for demand for our service that goes along with it. And I make a correlation between how physically demanding, that's why I wanted to show some gear and talk about the staffing intensive nature of our business. I make a direct correlation between that increase in call volume and we're not keeping pace with staffing. It's injuring our members. And that's not a sustainable model. That's a challenge that we have. So what's next? Proposition 1, February 13th, along with the school district. Your next presenter, Tom Siegel. Proposition 1 is a maintenance and operations levy. And it's what's the word? Replace. It's a replacement levy. That was chosen by the auditor. That's why I like to use the word that they wanted me to use. It's a replacement of the current M&O that was voted in 2014, a 4-year maintenance and operations levy. It's a replacement. That one expires this year. The 4th year is 2018. And I'm asking voters whether or not to approve a replacement from 19 through 2022 of that maintenance and operations levy at the same rate. And I'm going to talk financials yet. Is that what you were going to ask, Carolyn?
That was it.
I'm going to talk the financial facts soon. But that's one thing that we have on February 13th is the maintenance and operations levy. The reason for it is a staffing initiative that I presented to our board back in, I think it was September. I proposed a staffing initiative. And community engagement. I'm leading this organization so that we become more engaged in our community in groups such as yourselves. I see that as a need along with everything else here. So, Proposition 1. February 13th, whether or not to replace that. The staffing initiative. Now, what this M&O will do is, for staffing, I want to increase by 4 positions. Now, sir, what's your name, sir?
Al.
Al, the question that you asked about staffing, see, in order for us to maintain our staffing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365, it takes 4 people for 1 position so that I can keep that going. So for 4 positions, it's going to be 18 people off this M&O over the 4 years. That'll increase by 4 positions, but it's hiring more than just 4 people. Does that make sense? Okay,
4
that's the
times
way
4
we
equals 18, right?
Pardon me?
4 times 4 equals 18.
4 times 4.3. I use a multiplier of 4.3.
Wait a minute.
You gotta help me, Woody.
16. We keep track.
4.3.
Bring it, guys.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we'll do, and I'm going to talk about the other 2 major areas that this M&O will do. Community engagement. We're developing plans in the next, as a business model to become more engaged in the community. We're starting it now. Yesterday afternoon, Captain Woody had himself and several crew members out at Safeway at 224th and Meridian. They were taking blood pressures for free, and they decided to collect food for
The Harvest House.
Harvest House. So they spent some time at Safeway, talking with people. I stopped by. You should see the interaction with the citizens and our firefighters. Our firefighters are sort of a young, median age. They're very engaging when you speak to them, and it was a great interaction.
You're not in the city anymore.
That's right. No. You know, my wife and I were talking about this yesterday, because since we've moved up here, and we haven't been here that long, we were talking about how friendly and warm the community is to us. And my wife, not that they know that she's just in her interaction and living around here, it's the same in the Graham Fire Department, which is why I accepted the position at Graham, and it's the same thing in the community. We find a real warm, welcoming community. I want you to know that.
We're good
You
people.
should be proud of that. Pardon me?
We're good people.
I'm seeing that. You said it well. Will you come with me for the rest of these? I have a whole bunch more presentations I plan to do. So, speaking of that, we had an open house a couple of weeks ago. at that station 96, 224th east of Meridian. Had an open house. Wanted to invite people in and meet firefighters. And they had an ability there to meet the goats. So I'm not kidding myself. We sort of, Captain Woody said, hey, come on in, meet the new fire chief. You know, we weren't putting a new truck in service or a new station, meet the fire chief. And well, people are really going to let's have them meet the goats. So we brought the goats inside the station, and you should see
The crap on the floor.
Now, it did happen, John, but I'm not going to talk about that. We have another one coming up Wednesday. This says January 24th. It's off the screen a little bit.
Okay.
So it's next Wednesday. At station 91. Do you know where that is? 187th west of Meridian. There's the address up there. 7 p.m. Open house. Meet the firefighters. And it was such a success. See, the goats are down at the south station. We're transporting the goats up to station 91. Come and meet the goats.
We're up on that
See, the
floor.
thing is, I think that Grand Fire and Rescue is going to become the trend-setting. I'm sorry, Central Pierce. I like Dan Olson and I like a lot of people at Central Pierce, but watch Grand Fire and Rescue because those Dalmatians are so yesteryear. This is what's coming in the future. Fire house goats.
Do you have special vests that they wear?
We should look into that, shouldn't we? Some costumes for our goats. I get it, Tippy.
Am I confused?
Meet the goats. They're friendly animals. Do you know they only have teeth on the bottom?
No.
Did you know that?
Some of us only have teeth.
Yeah, when you get older.
It's not. And they eat blackberry
Yep.
bushes.
Everything.
Okay, you knew that, but they only have teeth.
And beer
It's not
cans.
just our goats, is it?
No, that's good. So in fact, I prefer that over grass.
Wow.
It's got more nutrition for.
Yeah. Okay. Come meet the goats, okay? Tell your friends, lost some refreshments, but we have the goats. You know what reminds me, talking about that, see this M&O, I'll just say it now before I forget to say, with this maintenance and operations levy that we're asking voters whether or not to replace. See, we're not building new stations, we're not adding new stations, we're not adding new trucks, we're just attempting to staff more than, when I have 2 vehicles in a station, we're attempting to staff with more than 2 people. Now see, the way that we necessarily deploy that is high percentage of calls are medical. Do you remember the percentage? This is a test.
84.
You win. I don't know what I can give you.
Well,
You can feed the goats and take 84% on medical. So which vehicle do you think they choose to go on a medical call?
Fire truck.
At that moment, they choose the medic unit.
Oh.
Because we also transport.
Good try.
We transport members and citizens in Graham, the area that we serve,
For free.
and we only bill the insurance company, and if there's any rate beyond the insurance company, we don't bill the citizen. So we transport. And what happens then in our business model is that transportation mostly to hospitals in Tacoma, right, Captain?
And Puyallup.
And Puyallup. Sometimes is an hour and a half to 2 hour turnaround time. The fire truck sits in that fire station's district unstaffed for 2 hours. You see the problem that I've inherited. That's a fact. So the staffing comes in to help me adjust, while I'm at the same time facing an increase in population and an increase in call volume. That's the challenge that I'm faced with. And that's what I'm attempting to address with Proposition 1 on that day. Please contact me. I'll have business cards here if you want those. We have some handouts, right, Captain?
Yes.
You frequently ask questions. Now, I also want to show this. This is a terrible slide. It's not part of my slideshow here. It's actually,
That-
John, can I borrow this?
Absolutely.
It's actually this, but it's an image up there. But it helps me walk through some things about this maintenance and operation levy proposition. It's a I want to use the right word.
Replacement.
Replacement. Thank you. I keep wanting to say renewal. I want to stay out of trouble. Replacement of the 2014. It will add three major things. The first is staffing. And I've